Thank you so much, Veronica. I have to give Veronica a really big shout out. She has been so great to work with for these 3 webinars. And just this one has a lot of Zoom acrobatics involved in it. So you'll see what I mean. And she's just been great helping me troubleshoot it and just creative problem solving. It's just been really great to work with you. Thank you so much. And thanks everybody for being here. It's been great to see in the chat all of you introducing yourselves and telling me where you're from, what part of the state, and where you work. It's just great. Thank you so much. I love seeing you all here. And I'm really looking forward to this hour and a half. I have lots of interaction planned. And I'm really taking seriously this idea that, hopefully you will leave this webinar with action steps for yourself and your program. And the webinar really is built and designed for you to end with the feeling that, there's some steps you can take. So work with us here. We have lots of things for you to do. I'm going to be asking you to contribute to the chat, and then also a number of other ways I'm going to be asking for your interaction. So be on the lookout out and be ready to add your thoughts to the chat. Okay, I want to start by actually just with this little warm-up activity where I have 2 images. And with each image, this is the first one, I just want to ask you, so say you're a driver on this street and you see this sign, what would you do? And please put your answer in the chat. You're just regular driver heading down the street and you see this sign. Check my odometer. Good idea. Check how fast I'm going. Check my speed, slow down. Oh, because maybe Sally, maybe you're going too fast. Make sure I'm going under 45, LOL. Okay, yeah, that's what I do. I say, well, am I 5 over the speed limit? Is that acceptable? Or check that I'm not speeding. Stacy says I would slow down. Yeah, so most of you are saying that you would take this 40-mile-per-hour speed limit as something that you would follow. Well, why? Why would you do that? What would motivate you to stick to the speed limit? Why would you check your odometer at this point? Rules, says Anna. Why do you want to obey the rules? Can't afford a ticket. Don't want to get a ticket. Safety first and a ticket second. Yeah. Don't want a ticket. Safety. Great. Avoid a ticket. Spend money other ways. Construction ahead. Safety and no ticket. Afraid of being pulled over. Thank you for that. Not just afraid of having to spend the money on a ticket, but afraid of being pulled over. Like avoid, I don't want to put myself in that situation. Thank you. Because it's safer, says Paulina. Yes, it's like, actually this 40-mile-per-hour speed limit, maybe it's not just a suggestion out of nowhere. Maybe it's rooted in, that's the MPH that's safe for this street, right? Maybe somebody thought about it. Great, yes, so these are really good, interesting answers that show lots of different motivations, right? Like some people, you care about this on 2 levels. One is you want to be safe. You don't want to hurt anybody, right? And also we all depend on each other to be safe. If we're the only one going 40 and everyone else is going 80, we're not safe. So we're really depending on a feeling of social responsibility. And also there's a punishment for it. There's a consequence that we don't want to have to have. Tickets mean higher insurance. Yeah, so it's not even just a one-time thing, but you're paying for that ticket over and over and over again because your insurance goes up. Yeah, that's a really big cost to pay. Yeah. So, okay, good, interesting, thanks. I'm trying to sort of elicit like a little bit of a feeling of, why do we do things socially? Is it what are our motivations and what's the level of sort of social buy-in that we need to have to make it work? This is my second picture. Let's say you're a pedestrian walking down the street and you come across this presumably homeless person. What would you do? And, no judgment here. You're not really anonymous. So we're going to know what you say, but no judgment. I'm sure there's nothing new under the sun. We've all had this experience and we've all dealt with it different ways. So Ed says, walk by. Crystal says, usually just walk by. If I had change, I might give it. acknowledge the homeless person. If I have cash, I can give it. Make sure they're breathing. Typically nothing. Walk by, says Sonia. Feel bad. Yep. And keep walking. Most of the time, walk by, probably walk by. Good. Anything else? Anybody? Is anybody hesitating? Cringe. Thank you, Stacy. That's real. Donate. If I have more time, stop and give them some water or food. I'd feel sad and probably walk by. Place money in the cup, connect if they're awake. Wonder what that person's story is. Yeah. Feel bad, but mostly walk by. Yeah. Wow, this is a really interesting range, right? Like this actually affects us a lot. Even the energy that it takes to walk by and not do anything. So let me ask now why? Why, you know, for the people who say, well, I would just walk by, why would you just walk by? And the people who say, well, I would give change, or I would check to see if he or she was breathing, or, you know, could you say a little bit about why? Safety concerns, not sure best way to help. Stacy says a little bit of fear. And unfortunately, we become indifferent to seeing this on our city streets. Yeah. So that's why I would walk by, because I've become indifferent, because I've seen it so much. What are some more reasons for why you might just walk by? Yeah, indifferent, not sure what to do, fear. So some people are saying, you know, I don't want the person to feel invisible, so I try to engage. Donate to a group is more helpful than donating to an individual. So maybe some of you, yeah, are thinking, well, I donate to the homeless shelter or to the food pantry. You know, that's where I give my money, and I don't give my money in little dollars and $5 bills here and there. Do not know the situation and would like to help. And then somebody else says, I come from deep poverty and have family that is homeless. It's closer to our realities than we realize. The fabric of our society is weak. Mm-hmm. So that's a big thing to have to face into every time you walk by a homeless person, facing by what is happening, facing into what is happening in the fabric of our society. That's a big deal. You know, we're just trying to get from point A to point B. We're trying to do our errands. We're not trying to think about the fabric of our society, and boom, there it is, you know, kind of hitting us. Walking by and not acknowledging them always makes me feel useless. It's inherently selfish and related to my own guilt. So here we have, you know, guilt, feeling selfish when we just walk by, trying to at least acknowledge, so the homeless person at least feels like they're treated like a human being. My mother and uncle had mental health issues, and my mother died on the streets while homeless. We don't know their stories and often place blame and judgment versus seeing them as a person first. Wow, thank you, Andrea. That's really helpful to hear. Yeah, just the effort just to see this person as a human without judging. Thank you for that. Ryan says, I feel like that person has made a choice to be there. Okay. So yeah, contrasting that with, you know, this idea that they've made a choice versus, you know, their circumstances have added up and yielded this situation, which honestly to me looks like something that really not too many people would choose if they had alternatives, but maybe some people would. Okay, wow, that's a lot. So I think, you know, what we're seeing is that, and the reason why I chose this as a warm-up is because I just wanted to kind of enter into our minds this idea that there's a lot of unwritten rules. There's a lot of engines in our society. There's a lot of systems and institutions that make things work the way they work. And there's a lot of rules and a lot of ways that things work, that some of which we have control over, some of which we buy into, some of which we don't, some of which we feel hopeless around and discouraged around, and some of which we feel like we don't feel that way around. Some ways we've carved out little ways that we can take some bit of action, and some we haven't. And so it's a lot going on, and we're taking on a big piece in this webinar by looking at equity and racism and thinking about what we can do about it in our programs and in our own teaching. So I just wanted to notice the ways that we already interact with systems, and the places where we might get discouraged and feel like there's a way I can have an impact, or maybe not so much. Okay. Before we launch into more about what our programs can do, I wanted to just review quickly what we did in the first two webinars. So at the first one was on implicit bias. And what we learned is that we all have biases. Sometimes they're extremely damaging biases that reflect deep racism in our society. This doesn't necessarily mean that we're bad people or even that we're explicitly racist. But we do have a responsibility to address implicit bias. Okay, so we might be carrying this, not might, we are carrying around a lot of implicit bias in a lot of different ways. And we have a responsibility to take it on. So how can we do that? Well, one way was through individual actions. And if you're wondering what that image is of that person, the multicolor profile with the head opening up there, that is an image of raising awareness. So individually, we can try to raise our awareness. We can read books, we can talk with others, we can try to build our understanding, build our consciousness, expose ourselves to new things, and read widely and diversely, and read multiple sources, and not just stay in our own, what's it called, social media bubble. We can do that. We can also try to put up guardrails against our implicit bias. So what that means is slowing down, setting up structures that cause us to check ourselves, being in groups of people that are taking on, doing a similar effort so that we all can support each other. Yeah, building in structures that help us, renew and review and clarify how we're talking about race. Also, it's really absolutely essential that we try to take steps with others to quote unquote change the water we swim in. Because like we learned in that first webinar, the way we get implicit bias is from millions of messages, micro messages and macro messages that hit us every day through our culture, our social norms, our political and economic norms, our religious institutions. We are bombarded by the media and by all sorts of messaging that it reinforces our bias. So if we're taking this on as a private individual act, we're never going to succeed. We need to change how those messages are coming at not just us, but at everybody. So that is a big piece, changing the water we swim in. In the second webinar, we talked about the why and how we should address bias and equity in the classroom. This is the one that Reva Pearson and I did together. We shared classroom strategies for talking about race, and we also shared materials that can help you address bias and move toward equity. And I put the link to the lesson packet there at the bottom, and you'll see there is a whole lesson around teaching about equality versus equity. And I included this image again, just because it's a great metaphor for how to understand the difference between equality and equity. And I was wondering if anybody would want to unmute and just give us a description about what is the difference between equality and equity. Does anybody want to take a stab at that? Because that is ultimately what we're talking about today, is we want our programs to address inequity. So it'd be good to have this fresh in our minds. What is...
I'd like to take a stab at it. I had a leader once in the East Bay say, oh, there's some new money, rising tide lifts all boats. And I told him that some people don't have boats, or they have holes in their boats. So to me, he was talking about equality. And I was trying to explain to him that not everybody has a boat, or their boat has a hole in it, and we need to be equitable with this new money.
Thank you, Burr. That is a great description. A rising tide does not lift all boats if not all boats are seaworthy, or if boats have 25 people and they're meant to have only 4, or if the boat is loaded down with something that is not helpful. You know, that was a great another metaphor, like the one that we're looking at here to describe the difference between equity and equality. Thank you so much. And just, you know, to revisit this, the Google slide presentation that you can find on the Change Agent website at lesson packet number 26 is about teaching students the difference between equality and equity. And it's a wonderful, accessible opportunity to really dive into a very complex kind of concept, a very adult and complex concept, but in a way that's accessible to ESOL learners or beginner or intermediate literacy learners. So you can check out that lesson plan if you like. Okay, so one key tip I want to say is don't go it alone. Undoing racism is not a private endeavor. It, of course, is partly individual. You know, people have to think about what's going on in their own minds, but we can't think of ourselves as little individual silos in society. We're part of a larger fabric. We're part of multiple systems, and those systems often reinforce racism and inequity. And so they really have to be addressed at the same time. And if you personally are trying to check where your own biases or grow here in some way, it's better to connect with people around this, because once you move into this material, there's going to be times where you make mistakes. There's going to be times you try things and they don't work. And it's so important to know that ahead of time and to be able to brush yourself off and keep going. And you can do that with the support of others and learn what other people are trying and find out from them what didn't work or what worked. And, you know, just have each other as you go forward. So as I mentioned, these metaphors are going to be coming up a bit, this idea that, you know, putting up guardrails and changing the water we swim in. These are some of the things that I think programs are poised to be able to do, changing some of our practices in our programs and in our field. And that's where we're going to be putting our minds for the most part today. And I took the liberty of kind of coming up with 6 categories that I think could describe the main places where we can work in our programs. And these are the 6 categories. And what I want to do is ask you to go to a set of Google Slides and do a Post-it note activity. And I'll share the link with you in the chat, or maybe Veronica can do that. And what you're going to do is browse around the 6 categories, and everybody should be able to get into this Google slide presentation and then write on a Post-it note something that you're already doing in your program, because I don't want to make believe here that no one's doing anything on this already. I mean, I know all of you are already thinking about this kind of thing, and your programs are thinking about this kind of thing and trying things, you know. So what are you already doing? Pick the right Google slide and write it on the right color Post-it note and just leave it there. And so I'm going to give you 5 minutes to do this. So I'm going to go on my screen to the Post-it note. And I see some of you are already getting in there, so that's great. If you're not in there yet, just click on the link that Veronica shared in the chat and click through the first 6 slides and choose the area that you could share 1, or maybe if you have time, 2 practices that you're already doing in your program. And so I'm going to give you, you know, about 5 minutes or so to think about that. And stay in this slideshow, because you can read other people's entries if you like. I want to give you a little time in here to check it out.
happened in the slide deck? I feel like we lost number 1. Or did they all just change? Did someone slide it? I lost the one I was writing in.
Oh. How did that happen? Did somebody delete a slide by mistake? Huh. Okay.
Well, now number 5 looks like it's blank, so I can just, it was the one on teacher support that I was writing about.
Okay, I just reintroduced, you were
Okay.
you were on slide number 1?
Yes.
Okay, let me
Thank
try to resurrect those slides. So this'll just take a second, so hold on. Let me see if okay, there's some more post-it notes for the first category. And you can just copy the post-it note if you need to make another one. Right now there's only 4 there, but, or here's another 8. I mean, so there's 8 altogether now. So sorry, you'll have to type your thing again if you lost it on that first slide. I hope people found their way back into the first slide. If you want to say anything about classroom. Yeah, I see somebody in there. That's good. Thank you. Anonymous skunk. Great. So somebody's in there. And I see other people too. Great. So it looks like people have had a chance to do a lot of typing, which is great. And I hope you'll now just browse around and see what people are doing in these different categories. So take a few more minutes. This is great. I love the materials that the practices that people are already doing. This is really good. Awesome. Okay. Feel free to keep adding if you want, if you can think of another practice, or if you've got yours in there, I'm going to ask you all to go to slide 7. And based on your browsing around and looking at these 6 slides, I want you to pick a small group that you would like to work in, because what's going to happen is Veronica is going to scurry around and put you in a breakout room so that you can work with others on this topic. So what you can do is you can pick a place that you already have some strength in and you want to make it stronger, or you can pick a place where you look at other people's ideas and you go, wow, other people are doing stuff. Well, I'm not, I want to work there. I feel weak there and I want to figure it out. So however you want to look at it, a place where you maybe have done a few things, but you'd like to do more, a place where you've done nothing and you'd like to try some stuff, a place where you're strong, you want to get stronger. This is really fun watching people type right on top of each other. This is a great moment in sort of like driving the speed limit. Everybody has to kind of figure out how to get their name in there. Everybody's doing a great job following these tangled instructions and using these cluttered post-it notes and sticking with the process. So thank you. And you know, you will be getting these slides, so all of this will be preserved for you to study further if you like. I see a lot about interpretation in number 2. It's great. Providing Chromebooks. Mm-hmm. So how's everybody doing? Yeah? Hi, Tiffany. I see some familiar faces and some familiar names. Great to see everybody again. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. And I see Diana saying it's nice to be in a Zoom where we participate and not just listen. No Zoom fatigue. I know, right? Isn't that the trick? I just get instant Zoom fatigue. I mean, it doesn't even matter. Somebody limits themselves. They say, don't talk for more than 10 minutes. 10 minutes is too much. I'm already zoned out on Zoom. I'm probably going to make that mistake and talk too much. So I'm trying not to. Now let's see. I'm sharing my screen. So now you all can probably see my screen. Maybe you can also see your own screen. Just checking the chat. Oh, Usha has joined us. Oh, great. Usha, are you here? And maybe you're only here for a short time, but this is actually a perfect time for you to jump in. So if you're here, unmute yourself, and I'm going to call on you in just a minute and ask you to share the practices in your program. But before I do that, I'm sharing my screen. I'm going to look at slide 7. And I'm going to say to people, did you sign up for a room? Because while we do this next part of the webinar, Veronica is going to be taking your names and putting you into a room. So make sure you have signed up for the room you want. And if you haven't, you'll just get randomly put into a room. So I have this screen here, and we have about 46 participants, but it doesn't look like 46 names to me. So maybe some people haven't signed in yet or put their name on a column. Yeah, we only have about half of you in here. So is anybody having a problem getting into this and adding their name? Let us know. While people are sorting it out, I'm going to call on Usha because Usha volunteered to say a little bit about some of the practices they do in their program to address inequity. Oh, and I see some people are on their phone. So Karen, I see that message is coming from Karen Rodriguez. I hope you don't mind if Veronica slots you in somewhere. if you have a strong feeling about it, you can message us. But so Usha, are you there? Can you unmute?
Yes, I'm here.
See
I'm
you?
here.
Oh, great.
And
We can see
yes.
you. Great. Great. Tell us something.
So I don't know whether I would call this equity, but more about social and racial justice. It's kind of where we started off with at our school. And kind of, so if you put it from an equity lens, all of us are going through a really difficult time right now. But some communities are experiencing this more than we are. And George Floyd's, that incident and that murder kind of put extra burden on our staff members who were working, just as all of us are going through adjusting to this pandemic. They had this laid upon us. And it took an emotional toll on us, but imagine taking a toll on that community. So that was kind of where all of this started. But I don't know whether I can Cynthia, your slide today as a review of the implicit bias that you shared, that really kind of helped me kind of think as to why we even did this. This was first to at our school to build awareness, right? We think we have moved past all of this with so many years of oppression this community has endured. So awareness was the first thing that we wanted to bring about. The second was to put guardrails. And the third was to kind of change the water that we swim in. So all of the things that you said, I don't think I articulated it as well as you did in that slide over there. So thank you for helping me. And so kind of what we did was we built a year-long PD for our school. And the year-long PD was not driven by any of us administrators. It was driven by staff. And the staff was, a teacher who's of African-American heritage or Black. And then we have someone who's a Latina. And then another teacher who's done a lot of work in social and racial justice. So we had those three teachers kind of coming together. And we are going to be we have had 4 PDs throughout the year, and we're going to have 4 more in the second semester. The first one that we did was examining everyday experiences that people of color experience. Like what you said, like if I'm driving, how panic-stricken am I when a police car is following me? How does that land on different people? So that was like, I'm just giving you an example of what they talked about. Then what is overt and covert racism and how people experience it, the microaggressions that people experience. Then the history of racial injustice in this country. And the third was based on the movie 13, and we talked about mass incarceration in this country, the 2 laws. So this was more about awareness in the school and how our students who come to our classes, what they might have experienced and how we should kind of be sensitive to that. So we are still on the awareness stage. Then what we're going to do next year, that is in 2020, the spring semester, is start on a positive note, celebration of achievements and accomplishments of people of color. So taking it from there and to kind of more of a celebration than, all the injustices and oppression that people have experienced. Then positions of power and prejudices, how does that affect people? And then we're going to again do something about empowering people to make changes in their own lives to promote racial justice. So it's kind of, we are halfway through. We still have some more to go.
Wow.
So yeah.
That's so impressive. That's really quite impressive. And taking the long view, not just sort of doing one PD during one staff meeting. Okay, everybody, it was really taking a long view, like let's unfold this slowly. Let's pull people in. Let's make it multifaceted. That's great.
Right.
I'm sure people would love to be able to share your materials if you could make them shareable. I don't know.
I'll talk to my team and get back to you, but I just wanted administrators to know that this was offered as an optional PD. People were paid to come to it, but it was on a day and at a time that teachers are not teaching.
Mhm.
But we have had such overwhelming response to it, even though people go away feeling this was so heavy, but we've always had great attendance at this. So that's encouraging, even though it's heavy topic that we are dealing with.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the heavy topic is exactly what people need. I mean, if we have to, we're walking by the homeless person on the sidewalk and feeling the grief or doing the work of shutting that out so that we can keep going. I mean, that is a big price to pay too.
Yes.
So no matter what, it's sitting there, right? And so looking at it, but looking at it with others actually can be nurturing and kind of a good contradiction to the isolation and the discouragement that we feel about some of this stuff. So good work.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for
My
sharing.
team.
Yes,
Yeah, it's the team that put it together.
of course. Yeah, I have no doubt. Thanks to your team. And if there's a way for you to share that through, if Veronica could help you figure that out, like uploading materials and making them shareable, that I'm sure that would be something people would be able to use.
Thank you.
All right. So now we're going to go back to my presentation. And I just want to appreciate everybody for doing those Post-it notes. I love seeing how they all get populated, and I love seeing all of you in there. And I just think, it's a good strategy, maybe even for the classroom, the Zoom classroom, to just get people brainstorming together. Because, then you can move things around and organize them and bunch them by category. You could have students do that. It's a really good critical thinking tool. Plus, there's a lot of digital literacy involved in managing your Post-it notes. So, okay, so we did that. And I guess my next slide is actually something that I want to share with you. Just Carmen Stewart is somebody who I've seen a recording of a webinar she did on implicit bias. And actually it was from her that I got the idea of sharing, like images to get people thinking about a concept. And also there's a lot of other brilliant work that she does. So I just highly recommend her. She works at Seeds of Literacy in Ohio, and she's also the CEO of Aspire Consulting and Educational Services. So she could be a resource for people in California who are thinking about how to do anti-bias work in their programs. And one of the things that she says, and actually, this is the only single thing I've attributed to her, but her voice is sprinkled throughout my webinar because there's little bits and pieces where I was kind of grabbing some Carmen wisdom. So just a shout out to Carmen Stewart. But this idea that we should focus on impact, not intention, is really important for all of us as we do this work, because we might come up against a moment where we find out that even though we did not intend to do harm, or our program certainly did not intend to reinforce or amplify bias or racism or inequity in any way, we might find out that we're doing it, by accident. And it's really important to just be able to notice that, like, that was not our intention. And then to be able to stick with it and notice the actual impact. You might, even just in our private interactions with people, we might hurt somebody's feelings. We might actually do a microaggression against somebody, or a macroaggression. We might not have intended to, but the fact of the matter is the impact landed already. And so that's the thing that we have to address. So as we go along, the point isn't to beat ourselves up about having done something that didn't work out well, even if it wasn't our intention. The point is to really take a hard look at the impact. I heard somebody say somewhere in here that African-American representation in adult ed programs in California could be quite low. In other words, African-Americans are underrepresented in adult ed programs. Well, why would that be? It's probably not intentional. Probably no one's trying to keep African-Americans out, but there could be something in your practices, in your testing, in your welcome and orientation, in something that you might have to investigate to figure out what it is that's not making it accessible. Your outreach, I don't know, but that would be something to look at. And I like just remembering that it's not about our intention, it's about our impact. Okay, so while Veronica is setting up the breakout rooms, I want to just take you through the next step. And that is going to be that I want to show you that I went ahead and made my own list of, certainly not finite at all, just the things that I came up with and that I've learned from other people around the country who were doing this work, of what I think people could be doing to address bias and inequity in their programs. And I'm not going to slog through all of these slides, but I'm going to take them, copy them, paste them into that Post-it note slideshow. And then everybody's going to move over there and work in small groups to discuss how you want to grow a couple of strategies. So you're going to pick some strategies. So notice that the thing you're picking isn't classroom practices and teacher supports. You're going to pick one strategy within that category and think about how to develop it in your program. And you're going to take notes in a slide that looks like this. Okay, and there's two. In case we had groups that were too big, we have like a 1A and a 1B. So if you pick that you want to be in classroom practices and teacher supports, then you'll be in either 1A or 1B, and you'll take notes on the slide, and you'll have access to all the things that people already wrote in the Post-it notes, right? You'll have that, and you'll have access to my ideas. So between those two sets of ideas, you can pick some that you want to develop in your small group. So, you know, it's funny, look at the second bullet point. Usha mentioned that, you know, they didn't make the PD mandatory. Carmen Stewart, who I referenced before, she kind of raises that as a question, you know, maybe it is something to consider making it mandatory, the same way we make it mandatory that you have to teach to certain standards. Like, it's not optional, right? You have to know the standards and you have to teach to them. So, you know, it's just a thing to think about. Giving teachers paid time to pause and reflect and shift in their classroom, because we put a lot on teachers and now we're sort of putting another level of thinking that we want them to do. But I really want us to think hard about how to support teachers to do it, not just give them another thing that they don't have time to do. Inviting feedback, providing a supportive opportunity for teachers to be evaluated. I don't know if you have an evaluation rubric for your teachers. One of the pieces of the rubric could be, is the teacher figuring out how to incorporate anti-bias and anti-inequity materials into their lesson planning? You could even include it in a lesson planning template, right? Like, everybody uses these templates that kind of remind you to think about certain things. Well, one of the ingredients of the template could be, does this help forward an anti-bias agenda? Okay, so that was one. And then two is the welcome and orientation practices. So I won't just read all these because you'll see these when you go over to your small group. Curriculum and materials. Notice how I kept the color the same, so it goes with with the Post-it notes. Cultural and social norms. Again, and I have the last bullet, celebrate and acknowledge diverse holidays. It's sort of like Usha was saying, just the things that we can celebrate can be really helpful. But also a big piece to look at here, I think, is, you know, do you have student voices? Do you have channels for student voices to be heard? It's a big piece of this one. And then 5, collect and study data. Again, my ideas about what you can analyze there. And then finally, advocacy. I have some ideas here from other states, and things that they're doing to figure out how to do advocacy. So does that make sense? Do people have any questions? And Burr says not mandatory, but paid PD. Yes, good point. Yeah, I think having it be paid is really important, because it's really honoring that it's work for the teacher and that we want the teachers to do this important work. So I think that makes a lot of sense, but I know people are under-resourced. So then part of what we're fighting, part of what the advocacy piece might be, would be, you know, advocating for more funding, you know, to be able to make these things possible. So Veronica, how's it going with the breakout rooms?
So it's going. It's more of a difficult process than what I had anticipated because we have, this room is fluid. People come in and out. So I've done the best that I can to put people where they have requested to be. If it pops up on your screen and the breakout room is not the room that you had requested, do not hit join now. Once everyone goes to their breakout rooms, it'll be easier for those who are still in the room to kind of put you where you had said you wanted to be. So just bear with us. It'll take a couple more minutes than what we had anticipated, but for the most part, everyone has been put into the breakout room that they have identified.
Okay, that is amazing. Thank you so much. What everybody could do now is go back to the Post-it note area, and you know what group you're going to be put in. So you can just go to that group and you can start, thinking about the activities, and you'll be prompted to join your small group shortly. And also just let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to unmute. Adele says, put me somewhere. Sorry, I'm late. So
No
somebody
worries.
just joined, yeah. And could you all just make sure you ask whatever questions you have, because I'm sure you must have some questions here. I think what I'll do is I'll show you this screen. What I want you to think about is what you want to try in your program, what sorts of, who do you need to have involved to move it forward? What obstacles might you face? What barriers might you face? What can you do about it? Who needs to be in the conversation? That kind of thing, the actual steps that you need to be able to move it forward. And so in the notes section, what you could do is write your strategy and then start to list the ways that you might address some of the issues that would come up. Identify the issues and think about how to address them. And so while Veronica's getting you all into the breakout groups, just hang out here in this area. Like if you were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, hang out in your area and start thinking about what strategy you want to do.
Okay, and I have opened the room, so definitely if it's the room that you selected, please press join now. If not, stay put and we will put you in the appropriate room. And Adele, I am assigning you now.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, so it looks like most people are in their room. So for those of you who are still here, could you let me know where you want to go if you were not assigned the appropriate room?
And I think you should feel free to unmute and just say, or if you want, you can put it in the chat, but it might be easier just to say.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Okay, so it looks like we only have 2 attendees. Everyone else are in breakout rooms.
So Patricia Hernandez, Karen, and Single One, do you all want to be in a breakout room? Can Veronica put you in one?
Hi, this is Karen. Yes, I was by myself in the advocacy group.
No, nobody got
Oh,
in.
okay.
with you?
Okay, I'll put you in another breakout room. Thank you for letting us know, Karen.
Yeah, thanks for
Okay,
coming back.
thanks.
You don't want you alone in the of all places.
Yeah, I said I'll do all the work by myself. It's okay.
Yeah, that sounds great. No, not at all.
1 second while I reassign you.
Patricia, what about you and Single One? Whoever you are, could you all let us know where you want to be?
Okay, you should have received an invite for the other advocacy room, Karen. And you just press the, at the bottom where it says breakout rooms, click on it on the button and you should be able to join.
I'm just going to ask Patricia to unmute. And then I'll also ask the other person, and just so they know that we're here thinking about them.
And Cynthia, what's the time for this?
Yeah, I had thought to get people back by 4:10, but there's a little wiggle room, so maybe 4:15. Will that give us enough time to do the polls? Probably. What do you think?
Oh yeah, plenty of time.
Okay, so maybe we could say 4:15. They could come back.
Okay.
I see you talking, Stacy, but I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. Am I the only one who came back?
No, the room is filling up. The
Oh,
main-
good.
I see lots of faces.
Good.
So, yeah, it looks like people have started to leave the small group. How was that? Did you?
It was good. It was a really good conversation. I was having I have to do these on my phone sometimes because I work the night shift. So usually I take these right before I go in. And I didn't realize someone called, my co-principal called me and it knocked me off my audio.
Oh, shoot.
So it was right before we went in. So I think that's why she had trouble getting me in a group. But my
Yeah.
group conversation was great.
Awesome.
Yeah, sharing a lot of really good ideas. It's very heartening to hear that we're all dealing with the same challenges.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that was good.
We're not going to do a full report back, but does anybody else want to say any highlight from their small group? Just unmute yourself.
Our group was about the orientation, and we had some really great ideas. And it seems like, with everything with COVID, that schools are making more of an effort to reach out personally and connect directly with students, like with one-to-one phone calls. And we had some great ideas about reaching out to previous students. And in the Watsonville area, they're going back 4 semesters. They're going to be doing a great virtual fair. And I have encouraged her to share a lot of the details about that fair with Cape Tap, so that it's going to be in January. So maybe post event, you can let us know how it went so we can learn and copy from you. A lot of things were in multilingual support, and also addressing that we anticipate students will have barriers and problems, and nailing them down, saying we really need this commitment from you. How are we going to work through this, and make sure you communicate with us. That's my short summary.
Wow. Excellent. Thank you. I think people are realizing that the whole welcome and orientation process is absolutely critical right now, because keeping people and giving people a sense of community and a sense of like, I belong here and I have the capacity, the technical support, to actually make this happen. That's really huge. Well, thank you. I wish I could just sort of stay here and hear lots more, but we have some polls that we want you to respond to. Partly to inform, what future PD we might need, and partly just to sort of take stock of what's happened so far. So I'm really, thank you for participating in that. Thank you for gathering, figuring out the whole Post-it note piece and the whole, the slide traveling piece, and just being together in a small group and taking notes. I will put everything back into the slideshow, and then it will be shared with you. So you'll have access to all the notes, okay? So I'm going to let Veronica upload the polls at this point. So here's the first one. What do you need to take steps on at least one strategy? And you can check all that apply. So this poll has 3 questions in it. And I'll let you just read.
Poll.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was asking if everyone could see the poll. It should have appeared on your screen. Okay, I see heads nodding. Okay, great.
And remember, it's got 3 questions. So answer all 3. How are people doing it? It seems like I don't see much change happening. Maybe people are mostly finished. Give me a thumbs up if you're, yeah, see some thumbs up. Okay. Veronica, should I end the polling?
Yes, and then you can launch the results.
Okay. Launch,
Oh, excuse me, share
share.
results.
Right. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, great. So now, why are some orange and some blue? I wonder.
The orange are an indication of the most responses.
Oh, okay. Good to know. Good to know. Thank you. So can everybody see that, the responses? And if anybody wants to unmute and reflect on anything they see, please do so.
Maybe I could just comment that from my region in Sacramento, greater Sacramento area region, that it really, the orange ones really affirm what we are experiencing. And it sounds like everybody else is experiencing more staff. We need more staff development time. We need more we have interest to move forward with one or more strategies. Yes. And then the last one, that we would all want to know how to conduct an outreach to all demographics.
Right. So are you able to record this, Veronica, to keep a record of it?
Yes, there's an export on the back end.
Okay, great. Awesome. So does anybody, thank you for that, Bronca. I really appreciate that. The majority here kind of reflects your own experience. What, does anybody else want to notice anything about it? No other reflections? And was that we were just going to do this one poll, right, Veronica?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you all for doing that. I feel like it's really good to try to notice what the building blocks need to be to make this possible. So, we want to brainstorm, let our minds free up and try to decide which direction we want to go in, but then we also really want to be realistic and make a plan and have the building blocks in place. So this is one way to do it and to notice it. And we can take this information and perhaps develop more resources for people. Let me go back to sharing my screen so I can at least share the last slide with you, which is really not much to speak of, but it has my email address on it, and I'll grab that and put it in the chat too. So I want to just kind of bring some closure here to our series and invite you all to communicate with me if you want to, if you have any reflections on anything you've learned today here or feedback about how it went. I know also that Veronica will be sharing an evaluation with you. And do you want a couple minutes, Veronica, to say anything about that?
Just that the evaluation will be emailed to you, so definitely be on the lookout for that. And as Cynthia said, we are using this information to plan for further professional development opportunities around this topic of equity. So if there's anything that we may have not addressed that you're looking for support and guidance and resources on, the evaluation is an opportunity to let us know, and also an opportunity to let Cynthia know what you thought about her presentation and the resources and activities she facilitated this afternoon.
Yeah, so that really brings us to the end of our webinar today and the end of our series. So I really appreciate people's participation. You all have been great and patient and just creative in your ideas. I'm really excited to look more thoroughly at the Post-it notes and the notes. And keep in mind, I'll integrate those into the slideshow, and then the slideshow will be shared with you. So you'll have access to all the thinking that you all have done together. And hopefully it will inform future activities in your program. So again, thank you so much. And thank you again, Veronica.
You're welcome. And thank you all very much for joining us this afternoon. We will definitely be launching more opportunities around this topic and other topics in the new year. So be on the lookout for all of those great opportunities, and be on the lookout for the evaluation, a copy of the presentation, and then we'll also include the link to where the sessions are, the parts 1 and 2 are located, so that you can share with everyone. So again, thank you all very much for your time and your participation. Everyone have a happy holidays and a break, and we'll see you all in the new year.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.